So for those who have heard the reports, Paul George and the Clippers are on very rocky grounds, to say the least, in regards to their current standing with their relationship. Because when the Clippers traded for Paul George, they essentially traded their entire future. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have a first round draft pick up until 2025, which, man, if that's the case, that sucks, because this was supposed to be their year. When you give up assets like that, you only do that when you're essentially guaranteed to get a championship, or at least damn near. And for the Clippers, the bar is even lowered because they haven't even made the conference finals before throughout their entire existence. Think about that. They've been a laughing stock, not just of the league, but of their own city. They're not even the best team in their city. They're known as the ugly stepsisters or stepbrothers or whatever you want to say to the Los Angeles Lakers, who are tied with the Boston Celtics for having the most championships, and they just added a championship this postseason in a run that people favored them to get to the championship and win it. It really sucks. This was supposed to be their year, and next year and in the next upcoming years, more talent is going to be coming into the league and teams are going to consistently get better. What's going to happen when the Warriors retool their roster for next year? We don't know what they're going to do with that number 2 pick, if they're going to pick up somebody in the draft to help them win now and keep building in the future, or if they're going to trade that pick for a well-established star in the league that might be disgruntled. Or what about the Milwaukee Bucks? Let's say the Clippers even get to the finals and they run into the Bucks. What if this time Giannis has a guy like Chris Paul that can create for him and the Clippers are back to losing again? What about the Lakers? What if they add a guy like Zach LaVine or Buddy Hield? Not saying those guys are superstars, but they fit well alongside LeBron and Anthony Davis on that roster, and that'll only make the road for them to win a championship that much harder. Honestly, it really sucks because this is damn near the exact same situation that happened in 2015. Because even with Chris Paul being hurt, they still got to the second round up 3-1. And guess what? They blew a 3-1 lead just like this year, up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets, who I understand Jamal Murray had a great playoff run. But let's be honest with ourselves, Jamal Murray is not on the level of Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, and he was still giving them buckets. And for him to drop 40 points in the closeout game, man, that is completely unacceptable. And to be fair with you guys, when it comes down to Paul George, yeah, he didn't ask for them to trade their entire future for him. That's not his fault. That's what the Clippers wanted to do. That's what they were willing to do in order to try to get a championship, or hell, I guess in their case, just a conference finals appearance. But in the case of PG, man, like, this really stung his legacy. This is going to affect his legacy for years. And honestly, if he doesn't get a championship, or at least get to the finals, or have some NBA historic record breaking something to distract us from this, this is going to be what people remember him for. And I know Kawhi played bad also, and people are going to remember this for Kawhi as well. But Kawhi at least has moments that we can look at in the playoffs and postseason, even in 2014. And I know people say he wasn't the best player, but he at least won Finals MVP and contributed to a championship team. At a young age, that's still very impressive, especially considering he wasn't even expected to get in that position in the first place. But at least Kawhi has moments like that we can look on. PG, all the moments that he has in the playoffs are just failure. Yeah, he went back and forth with LeBron, but it's not like he won any series against LeBron. He lost all the series eventually anyways when LeBron was in Miami, and even when he was in Cleveland, he ended up sweeping Paul George. And in his last game as a Pacer, Paul George was terrible. I believe he was like, 5 of 22 or 5 of 17? I don't remember. He only made 5 shots in the closeout game. And what's crazy is if you go back and watch his last play as a Pacer with that shot attempt, he missed that shot terribly, man. He wasn't even close. But PG, bro, yeah, a lot of his playoff performances are not something that you look at in any type of positive manner. Let's not forget him calling himself Playoff P when he went to OKC, as if he'd done something in the playoffs to earn that moniker, and we're supposed to know him as that. But not only dub himself that nickname, but then go out there and get outplayed by a rookie in Donovan Mitchell, a rookie who was the 13th pick that, ironically, Paul George was the one who advised Donovan Mitchell to declare for the draft and come into the league as early as he did, because D. Mitch, for those who do not know, was having doubts on if he was NBA ready or not. And he had, I think, already played 2 years in the league. So PG, along with Chris Paul, they told him he was ready. And what happens in his first year? He leads them to the playoffs. They overachieve. They faced who other? Paul George and the Oklahoma City Thunder, as well as Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony. They beat them in 6 games, and he outplays the guy who advised him to come up in the first place. It's ironic, isn't it? Then the next year, what happens? He plays bad yet again in the postseason. And yeah, I understand it wasn't as bad as the year before. I will give him that. But let's not act like this is a guy who finished 3rd in the MVP race, top 3, I believe, in Defensive Player of the Year, goes into the playoffs, can't even shoot above 40% in most of the games. And I know people are going to say he was hurt, but let's not forget Paul George did like a whole up and under windmill at the end of the game when the buzzer was already off. That's what PG did. So I understand he was hurt, but if you can do that to celebrate you winning when you're already down in the series, I don't want to hear any excuses once you lose, and you lose in embarrassing fashion the way that he did, because he didn't want to close in on a 3-point shot. Because let's be honest, Dame was hitting shots from that distance throughout that entire series. That was not a bad shot. And you would think with the history of all these playoff failures, Paul George, or should I say playoff P or pandemic P, way off P, whatever you choose to call him and describe him as, Paul George, you'd think he'd get it together by now. But it seems like mentally he's just not there. And I think that he's too worried about what other people think about him. The guy turned off his Instagram direct messages or comments, whatever it is that he did. And that's when he started playing well. Don't forget, he was shooting Bob Cousy efficiency numbers in the first round against the Dallas Mavericks. He was awful. And honestly, to be quite frank with you guys, PG, if you're listening to what people are saying on social media, you're worried about the wrong kind of stuff, bro. You're worried about stuff that you really shouldn't even be worried about. I'm going to just keep it real with you, because you're a millionaire. You're making way more money than anybody that's saying anything about you on social media, bro. Sure, there are going to be people that have their opinions about you, but there'll always be people like that, whether you're famous or not. And the fact that he cares so much about what they think, it has to be a mental block, because he was just missing shots that he had no business missing. Open shots, mind you. The Nuggets are not some great defensive team. Man, it was a disgrace. It was a disgrace to watch what PG was. And the fact that the Clippers might trade him, they should. Go ahead, because this guy obviously didn't give you the proper return on your investment, giving up all those first-round draft picks. And if you feel like you can guarantee yourself a championship, because that's what the Clippers need to do, because they have no type of future whatsoever. They even gave up Shea. Don't forget that. They gave up Shea for this dude. So, yeah, they really wanted to hold on to him also. So if you feel like Paul George trading him is the right move, and ironically, I think the best trade is the trade to OKC for Chris Paul. If you feel like trading Paul George for Chris Paul and going with the Chris Paul duo of him and Kawhi is the right move, then you go ahead and do that. It would be crazy. I can't lie. That would be just an insane scenario. But yeah, that concludes this video though. If you like it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, push the bell for post notifications. This is your boy David from NBA Knowledge signing out. Stay safe. Peace.